Ladies and gentlemen, in basically any sporting activity, if you show up to a competition and you are facing a tiny 12-year-old child, you're going to win. You feel full of confidence. You have better motor skills. You have better muscle density. You have more experience. It is the complete opposite in the world of chess. If you show up to a tournament and you are paired against a 12-year-old, it's probably time to withdraw. This is true when I play against 12-year-olds. This is true when you play against 12-year-olds. And now it is even true when Hikaru Nakamura, the number 2 ranked player in the entire world, plays 12-year-olds. Now, a little bit of context for this video. Hikaru is playing a tournament on Prince Edward Island in Canada. That is a brand new sentence. Nobody has ever said that sentence before, ever. Why is he doing this? He is trying to play the minimum number of games required to qualify to the Candidates Tournament in 2026. He has to play minimum 40 games, and he's currently got about 9-10 games remaining. He's traveling around to random obscure tournaments, to visit local communities, to play slightly weaker opposition than he might in a tournament of 2700s. And when he showed up to the Maritime Open, or whatever on earth this tournament is called, his first round opponent was none other than Michelle Zhang, or Zhang for my Americans. Michelle is 12 and her FIDE rating is 1900. She is 900 points lower rated than Hikaru. But watch what happened. And as a bonus, I'm going to show you the first game of this entire thing that Hikaru hasn't won, losing some big rating points in the process. So I'm going to show you 2 games from Hikaru. These are very interesting games. We can learn a lot from these games, and we will continue the journey of the Hikaru qualifying to candidates drama. So Michelle opened with the move e4. Hikaru played the Sicilian defense. Michelle went knight f3, and Hikaru played e6. In the Sicilian, black has many choices. D, E, A, knight, other knight, G pawn. I think I'm not missing anything. You can also play b6 if you want. He plays e6, and he plays what is known as the Paulson Khan, the Khan variation. Very good Sicilian, very tricky Sicilian, fighting for the light squares, not allowing white to get close with the knights. And then the dark squares will be taken care of by the bishop, by the queen, which comes over to c7. It's a very interesting opening. Now, first things first, let's test the theoretical knowledge of the young lady, right? She's 1900 FIDE, but it means that her playing strength could be anywhere between 1900 and 2400, or 1700 to 2400, because kids sometimes are unpredictable. She plays bishop d3. She plays it quickly. That is the main theoretical move. And now if you look at the opening database, by far the most common move is bishop c5. Then it is knight f6. Then it is queen c7, then it is knight c6, and Hikaru goes even deeper than that into the cauldron of memes and dreams, g6, putting every single pawn that black has on a light square. Do not try this at home, and do not try it on Prince Edward Island, all right? This is risky business. Now, here what you're basically trying to do is you're trying to take the person with white out of their comfort zone. Like, what is the best way to exploit this? The best way is maybe to just be patient. You know, and guess what? She does that. She's just patient. She just castles. Hikaru plays bishop g7. You can now support the knight in the center of the board with either move c3 or bishop e3. She decides to retreat the knight to the b3 square. There is nothing inherently wrong with this move. It is just slightly more passive. And by the way, chess.com refers to this as the Swiss cheese variation because of all the holes. Fascinating stuff here. Knight e7. She plays knight 1 d2. That move I will criticize, but not too harshly. I think in general in these positions, you almost never put the knight on d2. I feel like generally the horses stand together. And one way you want to fight for the center in the Paulson, in the Taimanov Sicilians like e6, a6, etc., is with a pawn on the c4 square. And if you're not going to put a pawn on the c4 square, you know, you should play knight c3 right away. Black wants to break in the center with d5 or play b5 on the flank, and c4 does a nice job kind of containing that. But again, it's just a knowledge issue. Like, she's going to learn this as she goes. Knight d2, pretty reasonable move as well, but, you know, and again, the worst that white is going to get here is an equal position. Like, the benefit for white in a Sicilian is that if white messes up, you're just going to be equal. Hikaru obviously just castling. A4. So she prevents Hikaru from going B5. She's really taking her time. You have to show respect for that. Hikaru now plays knight to c6, spends about 5 minutes here. I mean, no doubt he was calculating the difference between queen c7, between maybe playing a5 himself. No, probably wasn't calculating a5 himself, but maybe just the consequences of a5 appearing on the board. There's a lot of moves here that, you can consider with, not that one, d5. So he ends up going knight c6. He is now fighting for the dark squares in the center of the board. White has many options here. I really like the move c3, both restricting the bishop and restricting the knight. Also, you are considering a5, which restricts the queen side, and Michelle plays that. She plays a5 quite quickly. Now Hikaru is restricted on this side of the board. And on the very next move, she met this move with the move c3, a very controlled move. a5 and c3 is a sign of class. It really is. She obviously didn't put the knight on c3 because she wanted the pawn on c3, restricting the bishop, restricting this. And she's just hanging equal with Hikaru. And by the way, just so you understand, black is very close to just being in a worse position. Like, if black just autopilots pawn takes pawn, you can take back with either of these pieces, and black is just worse because the bishop is stuck. And if you try to get the bishop out, you block that bishop. Now I take this diagonal, you get your bishop out. I'm trading queens with you, and I'm going like knight c5. And I mean, yeah, black is just much worse here, like much, much worse. So it is not an easy position at all for black. Like, in the hands of a 2800, Hikaru will try to control the tempo and the pace of this game. But yeah, when a 12-year-old is playing like this against you, controlled positional chess with good fundamentals, it's going to be rough. Like, now we see the drawback of Hikaru's entire setup. The drawback is you kind of played unorthodox, but now it's coming to bite you because you can't even move your pieces. So Hikaru goes knight e5. She drops the bishop back to e2. And now again, he's keeping the tension with queen c7. However, with this, and all these moves, maybe trying to put the knight on the c4 square, but maybe you're also going to bring it back to c6. You're not really making your intentions completely known here. You are baiting. You are baiting the player with the white pieces to play something aggressive. And it is the best move. And she does play it, f4. Now, she spends 16 minutes on this move, which is obviously a little bit too much time, but you have to understand all the consequences of your actions. Plus, you're playing Hikaru, so, I would have probably spent 25. But she plays f4, and now the knight has to either go back to c6, or to d7, or to this square. Hikaru plays knight back to c6, and she locks the center up with the move e5. But now, you got your opponent to commit a little bit forward. And the beautiful thing about playing a player like a 2800 is that he did all of this. He put the knight here, because he knew this was coming, and he knew that sometimes the best way to play a position is to actually make it a little bit risky, because now you have weaknesses over here, and b6 appears on the board. And if you take the move, if you take the pawn, which looks like a very natural move, then this position is not very good for white, because black immediately starts creating problems. Look at this. This is why your knight needed to stand here, because suddenly this knight has nowhere to go. You could play knight f3, black plays a4, this knight goes to d4, but Hikaru very quickly is going to create problems for you on the queen side. So, after the move b6, Michelle correctly sacrifices her pawn. She gives away the pawn on a5 completely because she understands that this structure is just bad for black. It's just bad. Doubled A pawns don't impress anybody. And you're winning a lot of equity on the dark squares over here. So she plays the move bishop e3, and she's completely right. But Hikaru goes for this sequence anyway, because in the long run, he's up a pawn, and that could pay off against the young player in the endgame. If you take the player to an endgame, rook b8. She plays rook b1, a little passive. A rook b1 is definitely, well, we know the song. Rook b1, rook b1. I get why she played it, of course. She was trying to defend the pawn on b2, but a little bit passive, maybe a little bit better would have been bishop c5 and just keeping the initiative. But now Hikaru's got to take the game over. So he plays the knight to f5, pushes the bishop back, and begins breaking apart the center with f6. Speaking of which, you gotta love how Hikaru's playing this game. Like, how systematically and slowly he is pulling apart the 1900 rated player who's better than 99% of the people watching this video right now and has a higher ceiling than everybody watching this video, including the person making it, me. So f6, just beautiful play, excellent piece coordination against the center, doing a really nice job restricting the play. She takes on f6, he takes, and she just plays knight to d4. Knight to d4 is kind of like the first sign of a little bit of an overreaction. Kind of like, I'm feeling the pressure. The computer here just wants g3. It just wants to keep everything solid. It actually still believes the position is roughly equal, but she plays knight d4, and now things are going to get a little bit wild. The knights are staring at each other, both knights actually. You can't take on f4 because there's knight c6. You can't take on f4 like ever because your position's going to be weak in the back. Hikaru takes with this knight. She takes with the knight. He takes with the bishop. It actually would have been better maybe to take like this, this, and go to an endgame like that. That is what the computer wants. Tough to understand that. Instead, we have it... Oh, no. The same exact thing happened. Although here, she could have taken with the pawn, which is very counterintuitive. Like, just shutting down your pieces. If queen f4... white is down 2 pawns, but apparently has enough counterplay, according to Stockfish. I mean, I don't know how you can... But that's actually what Hikaru goes for. By the way, remember those pawns he took? Well, they weren't very important in the middle game with many pieces on the board, but they are very important in the end game. So he is now going to put sustained pressure on the opponent, not just on the board, but also on the clock. She only has 23 minutes. At this point, she could go down into the tank and get to 5 minutes and end up losing the game because of time, or she can speed up a little bit. She takes. Now you kind of got to go g3 or b3 or something like that. She plays g3, and maybe she's going to run her king into the middle of the board. By the way, black's bishop is still ass, all right? I'm just going to say right now, that bishop is not particularly good. It just made its first move after 25 moves, waking up for the first time. Now we have bishop g4 immediately going after the pawn with ideas like rook e1. You also had ideas to bring the king, but the second you go here, you know, black is going to start attacking with the pawns. So bishop g4 played. Hikaru plays rook fc8. No, not rook fc8, just rook c8. No other rook could have gone there. Rook e1 attacking the pawn, and now he brings the king. Look at everybody. Everybody's getting a turn. He's making room. He's going here. He's putting pressure. This pawn is going to be used as a battering ram. You're going to end up giving it away probably and weakening the position. So rook a1, okay, rook c5. Black is up a pawn. You know, you got to keep the pawn on the board. Rook e2, Hikaru, bishop back to c8. Nice. The bishop woke up and it immediately got back into bed to play defense. King f2. Now do you come here? King f6. By the way, computer's hating this. I don't know what it hated so much. I think it really wanted this to be faster. And after rook a2, there's this move d4, which sacrifices a pawn, and bishop d5, and the rook comes back. And then black just plays king f6, and apparently these pawns for white are just weak. I mean, I have no idea. Instead, Hikaru playing it very slowly and trying to break apart the position here a little bit, but she's just hanging with him. She really is. This is an exceptional game for a 12-year-old 1900. It would also be an exceptional game for a 70-year-old 1900 or a 12-year-old 1200, you know? Like, I really, just excellent stuff. King d6, bishop back to f3, bishop d7. Look at Hikaru, like his king is doing some parkour, jumping over barriers. How is he actually going to make a breakthrough? And by the way, she makes a breakthrough at the right moment. And now they got to trade some more pawns, and this is the endgame. This is equal. It's 0.2. It is actually a holdable endgame, which is crazy stuff. A4 is coming down the board. Hikaru's doing his best. She's also playing great. Can I just say that at some point right here, a switch flipped in her head where she was like, if I keep taking this much time, I'm going to lose. Yo, she flipped the switch. She's playing fast. She's playing fast and she's playing well. She got 9 minutes on the clock. I mean, this is exceptional time management. She's not tanking. She's not feeling the pressure. E5. Now you got to move around here. You got to find the right plan. She plays rook c2. He goes king d6. She plays h4, right? We're 40 moves into the game. Now she's getting to around 4 minutes. Now it's getting a little stressful, right? Because you kind of want to make the draw, but it's not so simple. Bishop d1. It is 0-0-0. 47 moves into this game. Rook b4, Hikaru's trying. King e3. It's not even clear why this is a mistake. Like, white now can play g4 and try to go forward with the pawns, but, you know, she's hesitating. She goes forward with the h-pawn, which apparently is bad. She should have went g4 and then maybe g5 later to isolate this pawn. If these pawns get traded, like, obviously it's just a draw. Also, rook and bishop versus rook is a draw. So h5, bishop e2. Now Hikaru's looking for his chance. Bishop e6. Now she's still got 4 minutes, and rook c5. What she goes for here is that if you take me, I'm going to take you. And then after this, I'm going to take you, and you're going to get the pawn to a2, but maybe I have a draw because we have equal pawns. It took 51 moves for the young player to lose her cool. And here she probably felt like she had nothing. You know, she was just slowly going to lose. What's funny is just a few moves back, the position is quite literally zeros. Now, does that mean that it's an easy draw? By no means. By no means. She ultimately goes for it, and Hikaru plays a very, very nice idea here. Instead of taking the pawn first, what he does is he gives a check. And this is super important. It's super important because the king now has to go back. If you block on d3, I play bishop f5 in some lines, and not right away because rook e5 check. But bishop d3, I'll go king d6 and bishop f5. And this is winning. Why is this winning? Because you can't take the pawns. You don't have enough time. If you take the pawn, I win the bishop. Takes, because of this, king f6, rook moves, the game is over. Take, 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 take. Look who it is. It's the a pawn. That pawn in the endgame. That wasn't the one that took, but it shows you the power of the outside pass pawn. It simply becomes a queen. So rook a4, and Hikaru ends the endgame with one pawn, and that's all he needs. Rook, bishop, and pawn is a win. It is an easy win because you push the pawn, and the pawn will simply end up becoming a queen. And here Michelle resigned the game, still with 4 minutes on the clock, by the way. She never got that low on time. She played quite fast. Maybe the clock disconnected. The clock might have disconnected here. Yeah, that kind of makes sense because her time is just consistently at 4:09. So maybe something broke. But yo, what a game by her. What a game. I mean, if she watches this or somebody in her family or friends watches this, you should send it to her because she's obviously going to be a very, very, very strong player. She straight up had Hikaru in an equal game for 45 moves. And this was not Hikaru coasting. I really don't think he would do something like that. Like bringing the opponent along with him for a longer game just to make them feel good. Like, because that happens sometimes in certain, sporting events, especially exhibitions, which some of these tournaments feel like because Hikaru's so much stronger than everybody. I mean, I think he was trying to win. And she didn't let him win for some 50 moves. Extremely impressive stuff. And as a bonus for clicking on the video, I'm going to show you this funny game. In this game, Hikaru was trying to finish the game to play an online tournament. You see, Hikaru signed up for this tournament in Canada to try to get some more games for the candidates. And then chess.com announced some online tournament with a big sponsor that had $45,000 worth of money for first place, which is a lot of money. So Hikaru was like, I got to qualify to this tournament. The problem is this game I'm playing might take longer than 2 hours. I'm playing Mike Ivanov, who's a international master from Canada, who actually recently gained a bunch of rating at the ripe old age of, I don't know, he's like 30-something, maybe 40. I mean, he's a dinosaur in chess. He's an inspiration to people like me who are, just a few steps away from the retirement home. But, he's obviously still gaining a bunch of rating points and doing quite well. So this game begins, and Hikaru goes again for the Sicilian defense, and obviously Hikaru's won every game. He's won every game to the point that FIDE had to make an emergency new rule that prevented people from getting more rating. So I covered that video a little while back. I think I called it maybe something like Insane Hikaru Drama, because, the literal governing body of the game of chess stepped in and was like, Now, for winning this game, Hikaru gets no rating. Hikaru straight up went 4 hours with somebody who played on equal grounds with him, but because of the rating system, he gets nothing. Not even 0.1 or 0.2 or what it used to be, which is 0.8. He gets nothing. He only stood to lose rating in this game, and shows you that rating is pretty random, especially when you are playing on all parts of the world and you don't even have that much playing experience. So in this game, Mike plays the Rossalimo. Hikaru goes knight f6, which he already played once on this tour. White plays knight c3, simply defending the pawn in the middle of the board, and black now plays this move, knight d4. Black has many moves here. Queen c7 is another one. He plays knight d4, and now Mike plays e5, which is a very forcing move. Black has not put any pawn in the center, so you put your pawn in the center, attacking the knight, which obviously can't move anywhere. Black takes the bishop because it's a nice move. Knight takes, knight d5, and now the knight is trying to come back to c7 to trade itself off for this knight. So a move like c4 is well met like this. This position looks extremely stupid, but it's actually very normal. And after knight g5, white is cooking up queen f3, which is not just a threat of a knight, it's threat of mate. Now, this position is, it looks ridiculous. I mean, it looks like black is just nearly lost, but modern day computers have made these things possible. Black can even play f6 in this position, which is ridiculous. And after knight e4, black can play f5. And then if the knight goes back to g5, you have the same position, except you got f5 as a bonus move. So Hikaru plays h6. He spends some 12 minutes. And what's funny is the The best line here for white is knight takes f7. And I have a feeling Mike was a little afraid to play this move. Like, because after king takes, queen f3 is a fork. King e6 is well met with c4 winning the game on the spot. Because the king is in the middle, so you can just castle rook e1 and create threat. It's still not easy, though. But the alternative is black goes here, and then you take it, and then he takes it, and then you basically have this position against Hikaru. I don't really understand, like, was Hikaru going to make a draw here if this happened, or was he going to go f5? And then if g4, he was going to go d5. I don't know. Because if Hikaru goes for this position against you, I would be pretty stressed. So instead of that, after knight g5, which very clearly sets up the idea of knight f7, Mike plays knight e4. He can't really believe his eyes. And there's a reason, like h6 is almost never played. I mean, everybody here is going knight f7, but instead we have the move knight e4. Instead of knight f7, right, Hikaru now kicks out this knight, and we have this position. Now, visually speaking, this position is very nice for white, because white has an easy game. Bishop e3, bishop f4, bring the queen, castle whichever way you want, and nice space advantage, and black hasn't developed anything. I mean, it looks like black doesn't know how to play chess. Both the knights are dead, h6, a6 is on the board. So now Hikaru's got to figure out a way to develop. He goes d6, while also thinking, hey, if this game ends fast, I can go play my online tournament. So bishop f4, bishop f5, right? The knight is hanging. So you got to move it. Okay, he goes queen d5 with an attack on b7 and a defense on e4. And black can do a lot of things here. The best line here is probably to take on e5. If queen e5, then you go e6. If rook d1 attacking the queen goes to c8, and you just sit here and white has nothing. White can come in. It looks extremely scary, but it's not scary. Black is actually doing okay. There's no threat. Nice move, pawn c4. White king castle. Black plays f6, king f7, rook e8, and actually is not even worse. Black is better somehow, because white's pawns are bad in the long run. Better is a strong description. But instead, Hikaru takes on e4, queen e4, kicks out the queen completely, and solidifies his position. And here life is good. Black has officially solved all of his problems. He has bishop e7 incoming. Maybe the only remaining problem is the potential attack on the king. Like white here can play h4, which is the best move. And h5, which is what a guy like Arjun Erigaisi would play. He would just put this pawn on h5, restricting that side of the board. But it is extremely difficult to play a player that is as good as Hikaru and try to do that. Instead, Mike plays c4, targeting the pawn. Hikaru now can play a lot of things, right? White wants to go rook d1. He goes g5, lashing out, pushing the bishop back. Again, a little bit of a passive move. You're kind of seeing the Hikaru effect. No knight f7, no bishop e3 or bishop g3, right? Like not keeping the bishop more active. He goes back to d2. And then a little bit earlier, he could have also been a little bit more aggressive. But the good thing is, even here, white can play h4, and it is an unpleasant game for black. I mean, h4 is nasty because, you know, you gotta, like, what do you do with black if h4 is played? If you take on h4, pawn takes, you can trade the queens, but at the end of the day, you end up with this. And many people would love a position like this, you know, try to grind Hikaru down. But you kind of are like, Hikaru's coming at me. How do I, you know, let me play a solid move, pawn takes. Maybe I force Hikaru into a queen trade, which he does. Immediately swaps the queens, by the way, and now plays f4. He, again, could have played h4, but f4 is reasonable. And now, after pawn takes and castling, it's very marginally better for Hikaru, but the lack of pieces is really a problem. And so now you can play bishop g7 and try to bring the king to e6, which probably is what you do. Hikaru goes rook g8. White plays rook f4. Hikaru goes rook g6, solidifying the 6th rank. White plays the move c3. Again, very solid. Like, you could have played rook f1 and made him go rook a7. But okay, c3, bishop g7. And here's something quite funny happens. Hikaru attacks the pawn. Bishop e3 is played, counterattacking here. And at this point, black can settle down for a long game. Long game. Defend the pawn. White goes rook f1, attacking the pawn here. And this is going to be a very, very long battle. You know, Hikaru defends everything. White plays rook d1, attacking the pawn. And Hikaru takes on e5, takes on d5, plays bishop takes h2 check, and offers a draw. Because king takes, rook takes, rook takes, rook takes, rook takes, rook e2 attacking this, rook c6, rook b2, rook a6, and every pawn will fall off the board, and this will be a draw. And white accepted. And my man, Mike Ivanov, credit to him, played great, played solid, took the sting out of the Sicilian defense, played a touch passive, but what are you going to do when you're playing a 28-16 rated player? And is the first one to stop Hikaru on the road to the candidates. How much of this was Hikaru wanting to play in an online qualifier for a tournament with a $45,000 first place prize, which obviously earns him way more money than, you know, playing in these tournaments? I don't know. But it doesn't matter. Because he didn't put Hikaru in a situation where Hikaru could just beat him down. And the very next day, Hikaru beat local international master Mark Plotkin relatively quickly and relatively, you know, with ease. So it was a great game from White's side. Really a great game. He chose a very good opening that just doesn't let Hikaru generate any momentum. And I don't think Mike Ivanov knew that Hikaru was trying to play this tournament. But what can you do? I mean, this was fantastic. And had Hikaru won this game, he would have gained 0 points. How crazy is that? Had Hikaru beaten Mike Ivanov because he outrates him by 450 rating, even though Mike is a top 0.0001% chess player in the world, he would have gained no points. And for drawing him, he loses 5. So there you go. That's your little bonus update. Obviously, Hikaru is still cruising in the tournament as we speak. He is trying to win it, and he's trying to rack up all the games to make it to the candidates. Shout out to Mike for an amazing game. And also getting the game scheduled at just the right moment when Hikaru has to play the tournament. I'm just joking, but really, very well played. And we will continue to follow the Hikaru road to the candidates. And my gosh, I mean, Michelle is a beast. An absolute beast. So, what more can you say? That's all I have. Get out of here.